Hi everyone, thanks for checking out this video. So this is going to be the second video in this series I'm making on numerical methods in Python. So I previously made a video telling you guys about the basics of the Euler method and how to implement it in Python to solve a differential equation with one variable. So this video is also going to be about the Euler method, but I'm going to be showing you guys an example of how to use it to solve a system of two variables. And then how to write the code for it in Python. Okay, so this is like a little diagram of the example system I'm going to be using. So this is what's known in molecular biology as the central dogma. It's called the central dogma of molecular biology. So basically the idea is that segments of DNA called genes are transcribed into strands of messenger RNA or mRNA. And then the strands of RNA are translated into proteins, and then the proteins are basically what do like the work and like the various functions of the cell. And then both the mRNA and proteins break down with some rate, so they kind of float around in the cytoplasm, and they also like degrade and break down over time. Okay, so in this system we have two variables we're keeping track of. So we have m, which is keeping track of the level of the mRNAs. You may want to think of this in this case as like a concentration rather than a discrete count of the mRNAs, because since it's an ODE model, it's going to be the variables are going to be continuous. So you can think of it as a concentration, or you can think of it as like the number of them, but just making the simplification that we're dealing with a continuous variable here. And then P is going to keep track of the level of the proteins in the cell. Again, probably in this case, since it's a continuous variable, it makes more sense to think of it like a concentration. And then, so our variable M is produced with a rate Km, and it breaks down with a rate gamma M. So when I'm drawing this circle with a line through it, this is just how you draw when something is like breaking down or disappearing in the diagram. So yeah, it's produced with a rate Km, and it breaks down with a rate gamma M. And then the protein P is produced from the mRNA with a rate Kp, and then it breaks down with a rate gamma P. Okay, so pretty simple model. And yeah, I'm going to show you guys how to use Euler's method to numerically solve this model in Python. Okay, so the first thing I did was just write down the actual ODEs. So I basically just took this diagram and wrote two differential equations from the diagram. So we have dm dt equals Km, remember that's our production rate of the mRNA, minus gamma M times M. So remember, gamma M is is like the decay rate for the mRNA. And the reason it's multiplying the M here is because the breaking down of the mRNA depends on there being RNA to break down. You know what I mean? So basically, if we have 0 M, then there can't be any breaking down of M happening. So that's why the decay rate here is multiplying M. And then so for P, we have dP dt equals Kp times M. Basically, same idea there. So the reason it's multiplying M is because the protein is being produced from the mRNA. So we need some mRNA for the protein to be getting produced, and the more mRNA we have, the more protein will be produced from it. And then same thing here. We have minus gamma P times P, and again it's multiplying P there because in order for the protein to be breaking down, there has to be some protein for it to be breaking down. Okay, so that's the system of ODEs we're going to be working with. Like pretty simple system. Yeah, so let's get into Euler's method now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the notation a bit. Yeah, I'm just going to make a small change to the notation. And instead of writing dm dt, I'm going to write delta m over delta t, and then delta p over delta t. So why am I doing this? Why am I making this like slight change to the notation? So the point of writing it like this is just as a reminder to us that with Euler's method, we're dealing not in like infinitesimal changes to T and M, like with like symbolic calculus. We're looking for a numerical solution. So we're basically going to be updating the model in delta t sized increments. So the eventual solution is going to look like this. So it's basically going to be keeping track of t, m, and p. And then we're going to incrementally go through the simulation in delta t sized jumps. So here I made delta t to be 0.5. So basically, every iteration of the simulation, we update t by adding delta t to it. And then we're going to update our variables m and p by calculating the delta m and delta p, and then adding that to the previous value. So that's basically what we're going to have to do. So in order to solve for delta m and delta p, basically all we have to do is just take the delta t over to this side. I'll just kind of cross that out there. And then, same thing over here. Just take the delta t over to this side and have it multiply this whole thing. And then, maybe I can just kind of, crossing out looks bad, so I'll just actually... and this is how we write our equations for delta m and delta p. And remember, delta t is something that we decide what it is, so we can make it whatever we want to in our code. And then kp, gamma p, km, and gamma m are going to be constant parameters that, again, we define in the model. So the only thing we have to solve for are the actual levels of the variables and the deltas of the variables. And then once we have it like this, basically the way we're going to iteratively go through the simulation, it's going to be like this basically. So it's going to be m at iteration I plus 1 equals m at iteration I plus delta m. And then same thing for p. P at iteration I plus 1 equals p at iteration I plus delta p. And then, maybe just for completeness too, I'll write also for t. So t at iteration I plus 1 equals t at iteration I plus delta t. So like I said, with the t, we're just, we decide what delta t is, and then we basically solve, when we're iteratively going through the model, we basically look at what m and p currently are at the current iteration, and then their value at the next iteration is going to be their current value plus their deltas that we calculate. Okay, so I hope you guys are following me so far. If you're not following me at the moment, it might help to actually see it in the code, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, so let's actually get into the Python code now. So we're going to import matplotlib.pyplot splt. That's going to be for when we plot the results. And then for implementing Euler's method, so the first thing we're going to do is define our initial conditions. So I'm gonna say m init equals 0. So we're starting with 0 mRNA, and then p init equals 0, starting with 0 of the protein. Next, we'll define the endpoint of the simulation. So I'm going to say t-end equals 200. And then we also need to define some values for our constant parameters. So we're going to have 4 parameters. So there's km, gamma m, kp, and gamma p. So I'm going to say km equals 0.4, gamma m equals 0.1, kp equals 0.2, and gamma p equals 0.05. You guys can play around with different values here. I'm kind of using these because I think they give like kind of a nice result, but I encourage you guys to kind of like change these around, try out different parameters, and see what happens with your simulations. Okay, so when we do the simulation, we're going to be saving the values of m, p, and t in lists. So we're gonna now like kind of get these lists started. So I'm gonna say m equals a list right now with only the element m in it, our initial condition. But we're going to be appending to this list to save the values of our variable m. So it's going to end up looking something like maybe something like this. You know what I mean? We're gonna be appending values to it when we calculate our values of m at each iteration. So we're basically gonna be like filling these lists up to save our values. And then yeah, same thing for p. I'm going to start a list right now with only the element p in it. And then same thing for t, except for t, the first element is going to be 0 because we're starting from time 0. And then we also need to define our size of delta t. So I'm going to make this 0.5. You guys can make it something different if you want, but I'm going to make it 0.5 for now. Okay, so these are basically all the things we need to do to start actually iterating through the simulation and calculating our values and saving them. So the way we're going to actually like do the simulation is we're going to say while the most recent time point, so I'm writing that as t index -1, that's going to be the last element in our t list. So while the last element of our t list is less than t end, that means that if we haven't hit the endpoint yet for t, we're going to keep doing the simulation. Okay, so now we're going to have to calculate what the next values of m, p, and t are based on the current values and the deltas. So I'm going to say next m, sorry, should be uppercase there, equals current m index -1. Remember, that's our most recent value of m, the last element in our m list. So next m equals current m plus, and then we need our delta m, because remember, it's like on the board, this was the m at I plus 1 equals the m at iteration I plus delta m. So we need now our delta m here. So if you guys remember from the board, the delta m is going to be km minus gamma m times our most recent value of m, and then all of that, close parentheses, times delta t. Remember, that's just what we solved for on the board. Yeah. So just to say it again, it's our next m at the next iteration is going to be m at the current iteration plus delta m. Remember, all of this is delta m that we solved for on the board. And then once we have that, we're just going to say m our list dot append next m. Okay, so that takes care of m for the next iteration. So now we're going to do the same thing for p. So I'm going to say next p equals current p, and then we need the delta p. So the delta p, if you guys remember, is going to be kp times the current value of m. I'm just getting this from what we wrote on the board, if you guys remember, minus gamma p times the current value of p, close parentheses, so all of that times delta t. So it's just like with m, it's basically p at iteration I plus 1 equals p at iteration I plus all of this is the delta p. So the next p equals the current p plus the delta p. And then all of this is the delta p that we solved for on the board. And then we just append that to our list of all of the p's. And then, yeah, then we're good. Then we have our next values for m and p. And then we just need the next value of t. So the next time point, next t equals the current time point plus delta t. And remember, we defined what delta t is, so we don't actually need to calculate it or anything. We already just have it defined up here. Yeah. So again, this is like t at iteration I plus 1 equals t at iteration I plus delta t, or just think of it like next t equals current t plus delta t. And then we're going to save that in our list of the t's. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. Super simple. It's like I said in the previous video, you guys could have even made it more simple. You could have just put all of this right in the append, and then you could have made it only 3 lines instead of 6 lines. But I kind of wrote it this way just to help you guys like follow what's going on. But yeah, super simple. Not a lot of code required to do this simulation. Yeah, very simple method, but also pretty helpful in a lot of cases. Yeah, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to be a bit lazy and copy and paste in the code to plot the results. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit lazy, copy and paste this in, and then, yeah, let's see what we get for it. Yep, looks good. Looks like we got what would be expected. But let's just do one more thing and make sure that we're definitely getting this right. So whenever you're doing these like attempts to like write your own numerical ODE solver, I think it's a good habit to compare your results to like an actual solver. So it's like I did in the previous video. I'm gonna again be a little bit lazy and copy and paste in some code to see what we get when we do SciPy's actual ODE solver, the SciPy ODE int solver. So yeah, being a little bit lazy, copy and paste in this code, and then yeah, at the top I'm gonna say from SciPy dot integrate import ODE int, and then import numpy snp, and then okay, comment this out for now, and then yeah, basically this is just doing a simulation with the actual SciPy ODE int solver, and I'm going to plot the results alongside our results to make sure we're getting the same thing as like using an actual solver. Yeah, okay. And yeah, it looks good. So we have the blue and red lines are our plots for our Euler's implementation of the numerical ODE solver. And then the dashed lines here are what we get when we do the simulation with the actual SciPy ODE solver. And yeah, it looks like the lines are about the same. So it looks like our solver that we wrote from scratch actually worked. So that's good. Yes, that's all I have for you guys for today. Any questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them. Like usual, the code will be up on my GitHub if you guys want to download it and try it out yourself. Yeah, that's all I have for today. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.